Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. The wretched refuse of your teeming shore, send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed, to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. That quote from Emma Lazarus's sonnet, New Colossus, which is immortalized on the Statue of Liberty, has offered hope to millions of people from around the world who sought refuge from poverty and oppression. Unless you're a Native American, your ancestors came to these shores as immigrants in centuries past, looking for a better life, making up the melting pot that is America. These days, though, many citizens and politicians think it's time to close that golden door a bit. Immigration reform is a big issue in Washington and among the presidential hopefuls who are constantly questioned about it on the stump. Our guests discuss the problem immigrants and the country face, the benefits of a robust immigration policy, and they offer some solutions to the disputes many have over the issue. Jamie Marasotis is CEO of Lumina Foundation and the author of the book America Needs Talent, Attracting, Educating, and Deploying the 21st Century Workforce. He says that we need new immigrants if we want to excel economically, and no, they're not going to take away Americans' jobs.
I think the real truth is that a lot of the immigrants in this country today are taking very low-end jobs when what most Americans want is the jobs that are good jobs that will help them be a part of the middle class and actually earn a living wage. And for the most part, the immigrants that I think we are concerned about are not the people who are taking those jobs.
Marasotis isn't saying that we need to allow immigrants in just to do menial jobs. He says that's what many do at first.
I think the issue is that we've actually got to create opportunity for the people who do come to the United States. And it's a combination of things. It's using our immigration policies to actually recruit people to do that kind of work, and then giving them the educational opportunities to continue to advance. There's going to be a pipeline of immigrants to the United States forever, as there should be, because it's part of what's made us a great country. But part of the success of immigrants, and my family is a good example of that, you come into this country, you start at the low end, and through education and work and training, you can actually make your way to the middle class and be successful. That's part of the American dream. That's part of our success story. So even if you come in at the low end and do low-wage jobs, we don't want to keep you there. We actually want to give you the talent that you need to be successful in work and in life.
He says we should be talking about talent. How do we provide unskilled immigrants a leg up the success ladder? And how do we accommodate them and their families with housing and other resources?
The key element in all of this is collaboration. Collaboration particularly driven by the private sector. We've seen some really good examples of some cities that have actually turned the corner by actually developing these collaborative partnerships where business or civic leaders are at the middle, nonprofit organizations, community-based organizations, educational institutions. But the driving element of all of that is how do we produce a higher level of talent through our immigration system, through our policies of actually integrating the immigrants, through our education system, through finding ways to actually create the housing, the economic opportunity, et cetera, for people that are there, as well as people who come to those cities.
In his book, Marasotis profiles one of those cities that has turned the corner, Grand Rapids, Michigan.
It's a fairly conservative Midwestern city, not the kind of place like, say, Austin or Denver where people are drawn because of natural resources or other things. But it's become a place of success, an old manufacturing economy that's turned the corner because they've developed this highly collaborative model where people really work hard together. And by the way, they're willing to make mistakes. They're willing to recognize that things didn't go well, but they stick together in a very unified way, saying we can do better, we can make this more successful. And I love those kind of models. There's other cities that are trying to do similar things like Louisville, Kentucky, and Santa Ana, California. These are the kinds of places that we should be looking to for inspiration in terms of their ability to actually attract, educate, and deploy the talent that we need.
To make sure that immigrants who are semi-skilled or unskilled get the education and training they need, we have to beef up our post-high school education systems.
The majority of jobs, and particularly the good jobs, the ones that pay the median wage, the ones that have things like health care and retirement, they require a post-secondary education. But the system is not really suited to serve those large numbers of students. It doesn't have the capacity to serve them. It's unaffordable. I think we can all agree on that point. And frankly, we're not sure what we're getting out of the system, that a lot of employers are saying, well, we want people with talent, but it's not clear what we're getting. We often use a college degree as a prerequisite, but then we're not exactly sure what we get, and we have to do additional training and education.
Immigrants come here for many different reasons and want the opportunity to contribute to American society and the economy. It's just that some aren't given a chance to feel welcome in the community or in the workplace. Deepa Iyer says that immigrants from some countries are looked upon with suspicion and sometimes anger. This can lead to segregation and even threats on their lives and safety. Iyer is a senior fellow at the Center for Social Inclusion and author of the book We Too Sing America.
Some of the challenges that Muslim, Arab, South Asian, and Sikh immigrants have in particular experienced, especially over the last 14 years since 9/11, have to do with this narrative of othering these communities, seeing them as threats to our national security, seeing them as different, seeing them as foreigners. So part of what my book calls for is that it's a process that all of us need to be engaged in. So immigrants need to, of course, be engaged in making sure that they're able to fully participate in American society. And those of us living here need to be able to make sure that they can do so without facing barriers and challenges.
Iyer says that new immigrants naturally seek out neighborhoods where there are others like them so they feel comfortable in their new country. However, we should not look at Arab, South Asian, Muslim, or Sikh immigrants as different and keep them apart. We should instead be in conversation with them and concentrate on our shared experiences and goals. To do this, she says that immigrants of all races, ethnicities, and religions should be encouraged to participate fully in the community.
Make sure that people aren't set apart, but how can we engage people generally, whether it's in the political system, whether it's in terms of getting involved in civic associations, school boards, and the like? How do we make sure that people feel like they can have that safety net, but also feel empowered to engage? And part of what my book talks about is that immigrants want to do that, but oftentimes they're facing tremendous barriers and challenges in order to be able to connect with those around them as well.
Americans often resort to stereotyping the immigrants that Iyer writes about because of their nationality, religion, or apparel. If they go to a mosque instead of a church or a synagogue, wear a hijab or a turban or a sari. She says they can be pigeonholed by those who don't want to accept them as full citizens in the community.
One example that your listeners might know about is about the student in Texas who brought in a homemade clock, which was immediately perceived to be a bomb because he has a Muslim name, he's a black Muslim, and he was criminalized by school administrators. So that sort of environment is what these communities are living in. And what I argue in the book is that we can do better, that we don't need to paint them with this broad brush, and that we can actually make sure that we're making better decisions, putting in place better policies that don't paint them all in the same way.
Iyer says that another stereotype is that people who come in from India, Pakistan, or the Middle East are all prodigies, that they're all computer experts or scientists. She says that many are, but those coming now are working class and need access to education and training without the social barriers they often face.
A lot of South Asian, Sikhs, and Muslim students face a tremendous amount of bullying in the classroom. Not to feel that they might be, for example, as the student I mentioned earlier in Texas, be profiled because of their last name or the faith that they believe in. So we need to set up safer classrooms that are more welcoming, that don't criminalize students, that don't profile them. And we also need to make sure that we're investing in the neighborhoods where these students might live to make sure that they don't have subpar educational access as compared to other people.
One barrier is paying for the education and training, not to mention housing and other resources. Minnesota says that in addition to having the leadership to pass immigration legislation on Capitol Hill, the private sector can step up and help create the workforce for the 21st century.
Private capital markets today represent $200 trillion in total investable assets. So if you do some quick math here and you say, what if we took 1/100% of what's in the private capital markets today and we applied it to talent, what you're talking about is $200 billion in money that would be available to actually support the kind of change I'm talking about. What does the private capital markets want out of this? They want return. Well, how do we generate the kind of return that we need? And my view is that the private capital markets have an opportunity to literally do well and do good by investing in this change. They'll make some money if they're successful, but they'll also be investing in social change. And, there's a growing number of companies that believe as strongly in the social value of what they're doing as the economic value. And, thinking about ways in which we can draw that capital, maybe use some new approaches. There's something that the majority of states have now called B corporations, which are low-profit corporations that can be created to actually both do well and do good, make money, but also achieve social goals. We should be investing more in those kind of changes. That's the kind of leadership that I think, combined with smarter public policy and community-driven change through places like cities, that I think are going to make us successful economically and socially.
You can read all about Jamie Marasotis' plan for immigration, social change, and how it can benefit our society and the economy in his book, America Needs Talent. Available now. You can also log on to his website at luminafoundation.org. For insight into the barriers that South Asian, Sikh, Muslim, and Arab immigrants face and how to overcome them, pick up Deepa Iyer's book, We Too Sing America, and visit her site at deepaiyer.com. For more information about all of our guests, log on to our site at viewpointsonline.net. You can find archives of past programs there and on iTunes and Stitcher. I'm Gary Price.
Coming up, taking joy in the little things in life when Viewpoints returns.
Quaker is on the hunt for America's next great oatmeal flavor with the Bring Your Best Bowl contest. Simply submit your oatmeal flavor using 2 to 5 ingredients along with your creative inspiration for a chance to win $250,000 and inspire Quaker's newest oatmeal flavor. As an actress, cooking show host, and mom of 2, Tiffany Thiessen knows a thing or two about tasty creations.
I'm excited to be a part of Quaker's Bring Your Best Bowl contest because I love the endless combinations you can cook up with oatmeal. From savory to sweet, for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, there are so many yummy ways to enjoy it. Enter your oatmeal submission now by visiting bringyourbestbowl.com. You'll also find a little oatspiration from videos and my own favorite recipes.
No purchase necessary. Open to legal residents of the 50 U.S. states, D.C. or Puerto Rico. 18 years of age or older at time of entry. Find the official rules and more details at bringyourbestbowl.com. Void where prohibited. Enter now through March 12, 2016. That's bringyourbestbowl.com. Sponsor the Quaker Oats Company.
Medicare and their list of suppliers continue to change. So if you have diabetes, it may affect where you get your testing supplies. But rest assured that your #1 doctor-recommended one-touch testing supplies are always covered by Medicare Part B at your local pharmacy and approved mail-order suppliers. Dr. Brian Levy, Chief Medical Officer at LifeScan, maker of one-touch products.
Some mail-order suppliers may offer a limited selection of diabetes testing supplies. They may try to switch you to a different brand, saying your current products are no longer covered. That's just not true. You are entitled to continue using the products you know and trust and that have been recommended by your healthcare professional at no additional cost.
Remember, you have a choice. Stay with the #1 brand used by Medicare patients. For questions about coverage or where to get your one-touch testing supplies, call 1-866-621-6216 or visit www.onetouch.com/Medicare. Medicare Part B is not a guarantee of coverage and payment, which may be subject to coinsurance, deductible, and patient eligibility requirements.